Hey, welcome back to the project with another episode. And we're going to do, things have changed a little bit of backdrop, but we'll cover that maybe next week. It's the second one we're recording back to back though. But the point, this one's going to be, I guess, a formal, positive, like people episode. I still haven't figured out a name for it. When you spend time with, when you just have like a nice interaction with people, just nice isn't the right word. Yeah, it is. I guess it is, but I don't mean nice and like nowadays. Like when people say nice, they mean like, oh, nice girl, nice guy kind of thing. I'm not talking in terms of like personality, relationship, or like certain types of like pushover doormat behavior. What I mean by nice is just how nice used to mean just a good interaction with someone else, or a group of people. So that's all that means. And these are the moments to kind of like live for. And yeah, I know, I get it. Like especially I don't know, it's not just the younger generation. They just kind of grew up in it. I guess that's Gen Z and Alpha. Has a real recoil, but I mean, so do other generations. It doesn't matter where you're from. There are a lot of people who are kind of like rebelling against the whole notion of being good, and by being awful, being bad and atrocious. Like it's supposed to be you're authentically like, well, listen, you can stand your ground without being a dickhead, and if they were virtue signaling before, which is full of shit, fake niceness, fake kindness, ooh, empathy, this, compassion, that, like what the fuck, and meanwhile giving like freebies to people who are just like running underground criminal organizations and holding picket signs, disrupting like traffic flow and people getting to work, and screaming and hollering at people who are just trying to make a decent living, crying about on victim mentality and crap like that and stuff like that in politics. And then we have the opposite side, right? It's like, so at the end of the day, it's like, as far as I'm concerned, that's bull, right? That's bull. But we also don't want things to be, vice signaling is what I would call it, right? Because people are just being outright, there's no decency at all. They're just being outright abusive and harassing and just bullying here, left, right, center. Is just as bad. There's a victim blaming stupidity shit. It's like you're vice signaling them. Okay, I don't know. You want to take it that way, you're just a dickhead. You suck. Alright, so like fuck you, 2 middle fingers up. Okay? But we don't want to talk about that shit right now because you can't tell this one. Right, this is something that's been up and coming for a long time, and we used to do this like 5 years ago. But it wasn't like a formalized series. I wanted to leave like a time capsule behind of just me speaking on a lot of people who I really, really appreciate in my life, who contributed positively and healthy to the general living experience. And okay, well, I guess we're gonna start off here, right? This one, we're gonna start off with a recent, just general encounter that really made me feel like things are kind of back to normal. Before things went south in like 2012, when everyone started getting really entitled and super easily offended over every little thing, all these isms left, right, and center. And then recently in like 2021, when people got really oversensitive in the opposite way, they get oversensitive to kindness, right? Oversensitive because like, oh, we're just faking it, and everyone's just kind of insidious and suspicious and thinking that you're doing things with ulterior motives. And honestly, they're not wrong, given because it's a counterculture to the previous counterculture in 2010s, right? The 2020s, something like that. It's a counterculture to the previous one. So getting offended over being, empathic and inclusive and all that diversity bullshit, and now people are getting offended over, being a fucking, getting offended at that, right? So it's like, that's not any better. So now they're being outwardly bullying and harassment and crap like that everywhere you go. I think things have dialed down. So this is something that reminded me of a really good time, better days, really. Better days. I think that might be the title of this episode now that I think about it. But this was about 2 days ago. And I was on the bus, and the operator, this is an operator who, you know, I think he has a hard time, man, because the route that he takes, where I kind of live, is filled with a lot of, you know, there's addicts, there's the injection sites, it's just not good. No, thankfully the injection sites are going away, right? Thank fucking God. We don't need any more of that political bullshit. It's certainly not serving society very well. Oh, people have not liked me talking about that kind of stuff either, by the way, but it's too far, right? You know, there's better ways to approach it than to approach, you know, endorsing someone's, you know, helping them through their bad habits. It requires, there are better methods, better approaches. And, you know, so this driver, I see him all the time for the past couple months, and, you know, it's just not a good route to take, man. I don't know. It's difficult for him to do his job. And he really tries to hold his composure. So, anyways, I boarded the bus, you know, that kind of stuff. And then there's, the traffic here sucks too. We had a quote-unquote crisis, traffic crisis. It was part of the local news, CP24. It's funny just watching it like half a year ago, thinking that's a crisis. Damn, like we had, but it really was, because you could be stuck. If you're stuck in here, it's like that Taiwan kind of thing. You'll be stuck, and then you're forced by the movement of the crowd. Okay, that was a tragedy, by the way. Like, my condolences on the. I don't want to talk about it. People lost their lives there in that Halloween crowd. Mismanagement, whatever. Over here, yeah, you could be stuck in for an hour and a half, moving from just one part of downtown to the other part of downtown. You'll like get nowhere. During rush hour, it's awful, man. At 3 p.m. Good luck if you're down here. And so, yeah, I know that because I live in this neighborhood now, and I've always known. And so we're on the bus. We're going down south, and picks up I think a disabled elderly woman, looks like a grandmother potentially at that age, and as well as I think might be a Middle Eastern or Italian man. It wasn't exactly a clear giveaway, right? And he's like in his like 50s maybe, maybe retired. I think we had a brief discussion. Again, nothing, you know, privacy confidentially, no personal details here. You won't be able to identify anything from this. If anything, you'll be able to probably identify me, not that. Because our faces here, I don't know. Face Off. You ever watch that movie? John Travolta. Nicolas Cage. It's an old one. It wasn't a good movie necessarily. I don't believe it was, but it was just one of those action movies that my provider liked to watch. He was always into action movies. Anyways, so halfway through, nearing my place, which is by the harbor front, I would say, turns a right, and instantly, fuck, we know. Well, I knew, but they were just figuring out the granny. I'll just say the granny, and with the walker, and I think maybe Italian or Middle Eastern man. Older man, and you know, she strikes a conversation. The granny's right. She's doing a casual conversation with the driver, which is nice to see once in a while because it doesn't happen too often. But I know he's got to pay attention to the road, and let's be honest, he doesn't enjoy the experience, right? As a driver, you're gonna hate the experience driving down here. I know because I have friends who do this, and I mean, it's not too difficult to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Speaking of all the compassion, empathy shit, before we had terms and buzzwords like empathy and compassion, before they were, at one point they had meaning before they became political, right? Became politicized. Empathy had a meaning. It was a psychological term. It was like, that's all. What, and compassion, like it was just a word for being kind that wasn't like heavily overused. So basically, you know, just interacting with other people genuinely and trying to put yourself, it doesn't take much to put yourself in the shoes of the driver and be like, oh, this is gonna be sucking dick, you know, this ass. And man, you know, I wouldn't want to be there. So he's driving and there's like 3 of us, and it's 20 minutes past, and she's like, oh, she quips about, you know, briefly, she's like, you know, is it always like this? And he's like, yeah, and generally at this time, yeah. And I wanted to chime in, but I didn't want to. Again, I've been more reserved and cautious lately, but eventually I do later. Okay, so and she says, you know, makes a mental note, you know, just being more considerate than the society has been recently. She's like, okay, instead of lashing out the driver or anything, she just goes, you know, I'll make a note of that in the future so that, you know, if I go down this route at this time, I'll make sure not to do what I'm gonna do or find some alternatives. And you know, so halfway through, then the guy beside me, sitting across from me, is, you know, the Middle Eastern Italian guy, and oh man, I can tell, you know, he came in here with like, oh, you know, does this take me to the station or whatever? And he starts talking about how he starts muttering, right? Because like, oh, he's like, fuck, you know, because yeah, well, we all feel it, because we've been here for 20 minutes and we moved like 100 meters. That's how bad it was. We moved like 100 meters in like 20 minutes, but we didn't even finish the block yet. We moved like 2 stops. So you know, I break the ice. And then it just really feels like good old GTA when I was better days. We got into conversation, and the granny joined it. It was just a conversation. I wish the driver had joined, but obviously the driver's preoccupied. And again, I think he's one of the younger ones, maybe newer ones, and he's just stressed out here. And honestly, like I said, society hasn't been the best towards the community, the neighborhood, society, the world. Just hasn't been very civil. There's been a huge lack of basic decency. So any sort of public or retail or service industry or hospitality workers, public, retail, service, and hospitality, you know, just customer service going through it. And as a bus driver, he's probably even more reserved than I was on that bus trip, right? And so he didn't chime in. But I remember when I used to just strike up conversations with bus drivers and just be chill, and we make jokes and, you know, some like quips here and there, some witty remarks here and there, and you know, I can't really do that anymore. Yeah, it's just difficult, you know. It's just rough. So the 3 of us are really having talk. We're talking away. It was really warm. You know, the guy beside me, I was like, so you need an appointment? Because we're going to be stuck in here for a long ass time. And so we're just chatting along the way. And he drives like, oh, you used to drive maybe? Because you probably should know. He's like talking about how, yeah, you know, everyone's kind of turning in from the left end, right end, dead center, 3 lanes merging into one, and they're all trying to get onto the Gardiner Expressway. If you know, you know. Gardiner, it's just chaos down here, because like everyone's just trying to get on the highway, and you know, it's all. So during, you know, after work, right, immediately after work, while the office workers get off at around like 2-3 p.m. and then followed by, sorry, not the office, like the you know, blue collar, roughly, right, 6 to 2 kind of thing, 7 to 3. And then later on, rush hour really peaks at like 5 p.m. That's crazy, because that's when the office workers and the white collars join. And then it's just chaos down here, right? Or not chaos, it's like a slump. Everything dries up to like a stall. And I remember when I first came here, when it was the worst of the worst, right? Like 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, when things were really, really shit, and people just couldn't handle it. And you know, again, we have some understandability to the degree how awful things kind of were in terms of pandemic and everything, all in society and politics and blah-de-da and technology and what have you, whatnot, and starting new families and crap. And yeah, you know, people were like honking horns left, right, so they're just like, hold on, and they just hold on just to piss someone off, because they're just so fed up, and everyone's just pissing each other off, you know. It's not quite like that now, which, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, people still honk here and there, but it's like fairly tame very recently. It's like maybe just within the past couple months, things have begun to die down. I don't know if it'll last. Honestly, things like this never last too long anyway, so it's hard to tell. Hard to say. But yeah, we're down there, and he's telling me, because I prompted him. I said, you used to drive, didn't you? Did you? You must know all of this. And he's like, yeah. And well, and then I quipped, maybe you're retired now, so you don't need to worry about this stuff. Go on a cruise to Cuba or something like that, right? I know even the situation right now is still isn't that great to go traveling, but whatever. Yeah, it's just conversation. It was, we're just connecting and just, we didn't exchange, like phone numbers or anything like that. I don't even know his name. You don't need to know someone's name. It's just casual conversation with some strangers, and, that's it. And there's some, yeah, there were some things that we didn't disagree on, but we just like laughed it off and stuff like that, right? And the granny was also chiming in, and she's like, she's from a different, she's not, she chimed in about how the fact she wasn't even from the same city at one point. She was at a different like city outside, not just a different region or district within the larger area, but from a different detachment altogether, different city. Very close. You could drive there within like an hour or so. And she talked about how she used to know all the drivers there because she was a regular, right? And at one point, going to the coffee donut shop that was at a bus terminal or subway terminal, and the two drivers look at her like, so which one of us is taking you today? And so it's like, it's just like that. And then and then the observational and situational comedy that would come in, right? And there's like different types of comedy, like dark humor, situational comedy, stand-up, witty and wry, right? That's usually from like a little bit like upper class, the wryness, the kind of like snideness, and then there's kind of like ghetto banter kind of stuff too, right? All different types of comedy. Stupid funny, lowbrow humor is particularly common in ghetto, as well as like the upper class as well as the lower class really engage in a lot of like that lowbrow humor, right? Crude, totally raw, unfiltered, uncensored, which I have a lot of experience with growing up. That I participate in the right context, right? But again, it's like the close group of friends. Oh, we are just rock. Oh God, the things that we say. I could not say any of those things if I were on, because we're on YouTube, right? And I couldn't say a single shitty thing that I could say. But again, context. I would never do that in the public, in the train, at the library, at work. It's like, or maybe I would, but it's like, save it for the water cooler, save it for back at the warehouse, not at the front of the store, not with that, not engaging with a client or something. There's gotta be context. Maybe the atmosphere, read the atmosphere, just make sure, is there like a crowd of 50 or is it just like 3 people? In which case it's easier to manage the situation, right? It's like one-on-one is much better. Or you're talking to someone directly, or is it like you're having a conversation and they're not included in it? In which case it'd be unwise to, start some like probably controversial types of humor or a comedy or satire or parody. But anyways, like back on topic here, right? Like we had, we were laughing the whole time. It was just funny. It was a lot of situational comedy, and there's a lot of like just like some venting here and there, and just reminiscing as well. And the granny was talking about, like I said, there's a situational comedy right back on topic on that. Is that there's a new employee goes in, doesn't see the context, underlying context of the theme, is thinking that she's gonna steal something. Like she looks a little bit sus, and it's like, no, she's not gonna do anything. But obviously, a new employee doesn't recognize she's been here for years and not decades, right? But the store manager probably would know. And I was like, yeah. So we had that. It was just fun, and we finally reach the terminal. Bus driver gets off, and he just scurries off to like a local college nearby campus. The campus has a washroom apparently, and so you could tell he's kind of holding it in. He's like, oh, well, now she, yeah, and then he comes back. But yeah, it's like, it was just generally really nice. It's really wholesome. It's kind of just not even necessarily wholesome. It was just, it was good. I don't know what to tell you. Just being able to talk to strangers and not have some shitting thing break out. Just not to have an unpleasant. There we go. Not to have an unpleasant experience, but rather have a content. There we go. I'm looking for words here. It's a content. It's not like necessarily super meaningful. It's not just like really exciting, but it's also not like horrible, awful. It's not unpleasant. It was just a couple of people caught in the same situation, just getting stuck in the elevator, right? Yeah, and I miss that. And again, I'm gonna be a little bit candid here. I get it, maybe because I've had no choice but to develop these tendencies and senses and adult humor, adult understanding, maturity and stuff like that at an earlier age. I've always had the because I've been always learning through observation, anecdotes, experience, practice, theory. Like, I couldn't wait. But I could see all of this. I could catch all the context, all the nuance, all of this, and from a very early age, because it was necessary for my survival in that kind of like hostile situation to know how to de-escalate. It's like the mediator, the peacekeeper within that bloody prison cell of a household. And so then I also knew how to recognize healthy situations and like just good situations, and even in bad situations, how people can connect over struggle and connect over some funny stuff that just won't go away, right? And it's like you can't do much about it but laugh at it and like feel the same way. It's nice. Yeah. It reminded me of like the old TO, so. But I know that it's kind of stupid of me to say old TO because there's no such thing, right? Obviously everything is in a state of constant change and dynamic flux. Ooh, look at that. Super philosophical. No, shut the fuck up. That's not what I mean by that. Just change. Change is a constant. Change is the only constant. And I recognized I was probably in the time that I lived out my early days, I probably was in a good time, a good like peak. There's troughs and peaks, up, rise up and down, like the business cycle, and then just history itself, right? What's that meme nowadays that people go around with, like saying? It's just a vague generalization. Don't take it with a grain of salt, basically. But there's some truth to it, right? There's definitely some truth to it. Bad times lead to strong men create good times lead to weak men create bad times, and the cycle repeats. So, well, I guess you can guess what I'm trying to be and what kind of times that we're in. Yeah. So I'm glad to have that, and for what it's worth, I'm not religious, but my thoughts and thanks for that interaction. That wherever you are, you'll never see this, sir, ma'am, and sir. Most of my friends, by the way, are all at one point for a long time, we're the silent generation. There's not a whole lot you could do so you just kind of push through. Resilience, perseverance, discipline, courage is the answer to things like pain, torture, poverty, depression, fear, shame, right? The answer is courage, responsibility, perseverance, resilience, discipline. Not something that the current generations or even past generations living right now don't want to participate in. That's fine, that was just a time, right? It's just a time. But yeah, it reminded me of a time where I just was able to connect with some good, loving people and folk trying to get by their daily lives, and I didn't know them necessarily. Well, back then I knew those people. Obviously, they were my friends in their retirement or nearing it, 60s, 70s, 80s. All my friends were like that for a long time. I always could relate with them more than the youth. And it was good to have that again. It was just a moment, but it was a good moment. And I don't need all these moments all the time. I'm just sharing this. So God bless your soul to those two. I guess I'm not necessarily religious. I won't say too much about that. You know, thoughts and prayers if you want to say, but you know, just I really, really appreciate that experience, sir, Mr. Italian, the Sopranos, Mr. Sopranos, or a Middle Eastern guy from, and also that traditional WASP, like white Anglo-Saxon granny, I think. Or maybe she was Persian. She looked very familiar, like I almost knew her. But yeah, it was nice. Yeah, it's good. So that's it. And we're gonna do this probably weekly every Sunday. Probably because I picked that day because if you can't tell, sermons, right? It's like Christian Catholic sermons and Sunday service. I'm not giving a service right now, but you know, you get the message, right? I'm speaking on good things and positive experiences, encounters with people. So anyways, next week will be something else as well. Someone else. And yeah, I'm signing out. You know, it's nice to meet you too. Again, you're probably not watching. You're not watching, but you know, for what it's worth, I valued it. It made my day better just to be able to sit there and talk with those two, the granny and the senior and the newly retiree or so. Okay, that's it. See you guys next one.